The realization has hit. Too late. The one who caused you pain now wants to return, but they'll realize they are no longer welcome here, because this place, where you cried, begged, and remained silent, no longer exists. You grew in the space where they tried to diminish you. You healed from what they thought would destroy you. Now the one who returns will have to face the emptiness they left behind. Now they appear. After the disregard, the absence, the indifference disguised as calm, and they say they regret it, that they miss you, that they would do everything differently. But where were they when the pain was tight in your chest and no one showed up? When everything cried out for a presence, and there was only silence? Nothing disappears like that. The wound doesn't close just because the other person decides to return. Time has passed, and with it, much has changed, including the place of the one who today asks for space again. Regret does not erase absence. Words do not undo the damage. If there's a desire to start over, there must be courage to face what was left behind. If there's a wish to return, there must be an awareness of what was lost. You cannot reclaim what was broken by ignoring the shards. If you want to win back, then prove it with actions. If you knock on the door, be ready to not be received, because not every return finds a space where one has already learned to live without. Now they appear, without warning, without context. They emerge as if nothing had happened, as if time had frozen the pain to wait for this return. But time freezes nothing. It drags on. It pushes wounds to the depths of the skin, silences screams, transforms absence into resilience. And when the one who left returns, they find what they left behind, but transformed, because pain also shapes, and emptiness teaches. After the disregard, the absence, the indifference disguised as calm. It's always like this. Distance doesn't begin with a disappearance, but with little omissions. A look that no longer finds a response. A message ignored. A dry gesture, as if affection was weighing too heavily. And then comes the contempt. Cold, surgical, almost rehearsed. Nothing explicit, but everything very clear. Indifference is the cruelest message. It's not that they've stopped loving, it's that they no longer care. Even so, hope insists. It tries to decipher gestures, seeks signs where there is only noise. It accepts crumbs as if they were feasts. But there's a moment when silence no longer deceives. It screams. Anne says they regret it. Of course they do. When the absence starts to become uncomfortable, when the echo of loneliness rings louder than pride, but is it regret or a need for control? Is it longing or neediness? Is it love or just fear of losing someone who has always been there? Too late, because the heart that spent nights trying to understand abandonment now understands that it wasn't about deserving. It was about choice. And those who chose to turn their backs cannot expect open arms when they decide to return. Where were you when the pain tightened in the chest and no one appeared? You weren't there, because those who love stay, those who care nurture, those who respect don't abandon in the hardest times. What was lived there was not just distance, it was neglect. It was omission. It was the feeling of not being worth the effort. And that hurts more than any argument, more than any ending, because it wasn't a fight, it was a resignation. Nothing just fades away like that. The wound doesn't close because the other person decided to come back. Coming back is not healing. It doesn't repair what was done. It doesn't erase the words spoken. It doesn't undo the gestures that hurt. And it's useless to talk about a fresh start without revisiting the past. What hasn't been confronted returns. What hasn't been healed contaminates. A return is only valid when there is truth, when there is action, when there is commitment. Otherwise it becomes a repetition, and repeating what hurt is cowardice. Time has passed, and with it, a lot has changed, including the position of those who now ask for space again. Those who learn from pain don't return to the same point. They are not satisfied with little. Do not accept just anything. Time has taught that presence is a choice, that respect is shown in the details, and that love, when it's real, doesn't just disappear without explanation. Going back is easy. Staying, when it's difficult, is what proves something. And now perhaps there's no more space, not because the other wasn't loved, but because amidst the chaos, one has learned to love oneself first. Regret doesn't erase absence. Words don't undo the damage. Talk convinces, but it's behavior that sustains, and those who vanish easily need more than just an apology to be taken seriously. They need to take responsibility, acknowledge change. Without that, it's just repetition. It's just an excuse to ease one's own guilt. And you can't rebuild with someone who doesn't understand what was destroyed. If there's a desire to start over, let there be courage to face what was left behind. Avoiding what was lived is denying the pain that was caused. You can't move forward without confronting it, without hearing everything that's been stuck in your throat, without listening to what you didn't want to hear before. It's not enough to say you've changed. You have to show how much you've changed, day after day, without rush, without demands, with honesty. Otherwise, it's just another return to the exact point where everything began to crumble. If there's a desire to come back, there must be awareness of what was lost. Those who disappear think they will be welcomed back the same way. They believe that time freezes feelings, but they don't realize that the other person has moved on, that they have grown, that they've reinvented themselves, and maybe they no longer want to return, because what was lost wasn't just a relationship, it was trust, peace, commitment, the genuine gaze, and that, when it goes away, rarely comes back the same. You can't reclaim what was broken by ignoring the shards. There are things that don't return to what they were, not even with glue, not even with will, because there are memories that cut, words that keep resonating, moments that repeat in confused dreams, in silent days, and those who think saying "I'm sorry" is enough haven't understood what they caused. Real remorse requires effort. It requires time. It requires continuous action. Those who are not willing to do this only want relief, not reconciliation. Those who want to win back must prove it through actions. Those who knock at the door must accept that they may not be welcomed. Not every story needs a continuation. Some need a dignified conclusion, a definitive silence, respect for what was lived and for what has become since then. Not every door needs to be opened. Not every return deserves a celebration. There are returns that delay. There are new beginnings that deceive. And there are people who only come back when they realize they no longer have control. But time shows. Those who have learned from pain do not accept what hurts anymore, because not every return finds space where one has already learned to live without. Those who were left behind have learned to be enough for themselves. They made a home out of their own chaos. They turned absence into motivation. They found refuge in solitude. And when one understands their own worth, any return doesn't make an impact. It breeds distrust. Because it's not about the other person. It's about who one has become without them, about what is no longer acceptable, about what is now a priority. And if the return is not a real transformation, let it remain in the past. Final considerations. The return of someone who caused pain is not romance. It's a test, it's a judgment, it's a boundary. They either arrive changed, or they do not enter at all. Dignity is not negotiable for the sake of nostalgia. Self-love cannot be extinguished by longing, and the peace that has been achieved after so much effort should not be exchanged for a new promise. Some returns need to find the door shut, because what was left behind has a reason for not being here anymore. Not every absence is forgetfulness, and not every return is redemption. There are absences that teach, there are returns that test, and there are decisions that must be made without pity, without guilt, without that old habit of giving in for fear of seeming too harsh. Because there comes a point where what one feels must give way to what one knows, and what one knows is simple. Those who hurt must deal with the consequences, even if they feel regret, especially if they only returned because they realized they lost. An apology is not the end of the pain. It is the beginning of accountability. Those who disappear and then come back often do not understand this. They believe that just saying "I'm sorry" is enough to reset everything. But what has been done doesn't just disappear. It remains. It throbs. It seeps into every conversation, every gesture. And only those who stayed know the price of staying whole while everything imploded inside. That's why we don't expect forgiveness to come quickly, nor do we expect forgetting, much less acceptance. Only one thing is required: respect for others' pain, and a commitment to what has been wounded. True regret is not in a hurry. Those who are truly remorseful do not force a return. They do not insist. They do not manipulate. They do not use sweet words as bait. They wait. They listen. They understand. They accept the other person's timeline. They even accept not coming back, because they know that those who have been hurt are not obligated to open the door, much less to welcome back the same gesture that has already caused pain. And those who don't understand this, that are not remorseful, they are simply uncomfortable with loneliness. Nostalgia has never been a sufficient justification. Missing someone does not authorize invading spaces that have already been closed. It does not give the right to strike again where one has previously destroyed. It does not transform selfishness into love, nor does it restore trust. Nostalgia can be sincere, but not all sincerity is reparative. It's easy to miss someone when one realizes the other has moved on. What's hard is having stayed when more company was needed. And this cannot be compensated with memories. It is compensated with presence, with consistency, with truth sustained over time. Those who return out of nostalgia need to remember why they left. Many return with beautiful words, with a new perspective, a new tone of voice, a rehearsed speech, but they forget the most important thing: what caused the rupture. It takes courage to face one's own abandonment, to listen without defensiveness to everything the other person swallowed in silence, to recognize the pain caused without turning it into manipulative guilt. Those who don't do this come back feeling empty, and those who return empty only repeat the cycle, with more promises and fewer truths. Nothing goes back to how it was, and that's a good thing, because what is gone no longer serves us, because what was allowed no longer fits, because the version that once accepted being left behind today knows she doesn't deserve that anymore. Those who return need to understand that nothing is the same, and that the space is no longer guaranteed, because loving someone doesn't mean allowing anything, and forgiving is not the same as accepting again. Not every story needs a second chance. Some need to end with dignity. There are relationships that do not rekindle, they die, and death needs to be respected. Trying to resurrect what is already gone only prolongs the suffering. One must have the maturity to let go, to look at what was good without trying to repeat it, to understand that the cycle has closed, not because the feeling has ended, but because they didn't know how to take care of it. And now it's not about resentment, it's about clarity, about boundaries, about no longer wanting to live in fear of being left again, because it's no longer about the other person, it's about what was learned. One has learned to notice signs before they become wounds. One has learned to recognize the silence that precedes abandonment. One has learned that those who truly love do not disappear when they feel insecure. They stay and talk and resolve. Time has revealed uncomfortable truths. What seemed like love was attachment. What seemed like partnership was convenience. What seemed like care was control. And when the mask fell off, it became clear. It was never reciprocal. It was never safe. It was never fair. True love does not leave when things get tough. It stays, even in discomfort, even on cloudy days, even when it's easier to run away. Those who leave easily do not return with authority. Those who disappear without explanation do not have the right to demand or charge. And those who cause pain need to have the maturity to deal with the consequences of being forgotten. Because forgiveness may eventually come, but the place in the heart may already be occupied by peace. Returning is not a victory, it's an opportunity. And not every opportunity will be accepted. The idea that everything can be resumed from where it left off is naive. Time changes everything. It heals, but it also transforms. And it transforms so much that what once made sense now causes discomfort. Those who return need to be patient. They need to prove themselves. They need to understand that the other person may no longer want them. And if that happens, they must accept it. Because those who didn't want to stay can't expect the other to keep waiting. The return of someone who caused pain is, above all, a mirror. It reveals how much one has grown, how much one has left behind, how much one is now different. And the question that remains is it worth reopening the door, or is it time to lock it for good? Only time will tell. But one thing is certain. After so much pain, those who have healed have the right to choose coldly, rationally, and without turning back. Not every return deserves a response. Not every absence deserves a welcome. There are silences that, having hurt so much, have turned into armor. There are returns that, being so delayed, no longer make sense. Those who disappear when they are needed the most cannot expect the same place when they decide to come back. The world doesn't freeze to wait for those who left of their own accord, and those who stayed have learned. In the pain, in the emptiness, in the abandonment, today it's no longer about the other's regret. It's about boundaries, about the maturity to understand that presence is not a favor, it's a responsibility, and that those who put things off may have arrived too late. If you want to win back, you must earn it. If you want to come back, you must face your own traces. But understand this, the time that has passed doesn't come back the same. And let it be clear, it's not pride. It's respect for what was felt, for what was overcome, for what is no longer acceptable to live. Because after so much silence, those who have learned to listen to themselves no longer give in to the first request, not to the first regret, not to the old promise of change that is never fulfilled. The return of someone who has hurt you is not a reunion, it's a test, a turning point. And perhaps now is the time to leave behind those who only knew how to be present when they felt they were losing you. If this message resonated with you, please give it a like. It helps reach those who need to hear this right now. Share it with someone who has experienced a late apology. Perhaps this person is in the middle of their own dilemma, caught between opening the door or moving on in peace. Comment below. Do you believe that those who return deserve a second chance? Or do certain wounds heal better when the door stays closed? And if you want more content like this, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Here, what is said isn't meant to please. It's meant to awaken. See you next time, or not.